Welcome everyone to the next episode of the Catributor podcast. This week with our guest TCFreer. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Everybody knows who I am. Well, hello.
Returning guest, we should say. It's not the first time.
Yes,
that's true.
So then I guess we can just jump into it. We have a few dev blogs to discuss, and I guess the first one are the upcoming Superships. Now there have already been some balance changes since the first post, but I guess we'll just start with the original unveiling of the Superships and the characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have the Satsuma that we already know, but they changed how this special mechanic works. Now you need 12 successful salvos, and then you have the special mechanic ready, and you can fire at the press of a button.
Yeah, they've got to make changes to these ships, haven't they? Because when they put them in, when they had them in that fun game mode, it was there just a bit of fun. You can't put anything like that in live, and obviously we know that sooner or later they are going to come to the new test server that we all know as live. So,
oh yeah, I mean, what I'm concerned about is that it's like minus 35% dispersion on a press of a button for 50 seconds, so enough for about 2 salvos, and that's with fairly large guns that gonna overmatch every cruiser out there. So. Cruisers have it difficult enough. 35% dispersion, that's a lot. It's like, I just don't like this cruiser, so I'm gonna ruin its life button. Feels like.
If you get caught broadside at the wrong moment by someone using that, it's gonna be a real bad time.
Yeah, but you don't have to be broadside, right? I mean, it's not like angling does anything.
I suppose it depends on the ship. I mean, yeah, there's quite a few ships where the potential you're just gonna get blatted from any angle.
But we've got to put it in context. Okay, it's number of successful salvos is 12. So that's 12 times that you've got to get hit by the main guns that reload in 32 seconds, that have got just over a minute of turret rotation base. So the player in the Satsuma has to hit you 12 times with its main gun. So that's 6 minutes. Just over 6 minutes. Isn't it? Where it's got to literally stand there and actually hit you.
Yeah,
so
but
it's going to be half the game.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be hit you, right? I mean, that's true. It's not going to be available very early. But, he's just going to sit in the back and shoot some other battleships maybe. And then when it's ready, if it's used right, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it obviously needs testing, but I feel like this is going to be pretty harsh for cruisers.
It definitely doesn't. It's going to make stealth as a cruiser being even more important, basically, which then sort of hampers your opportunity to do damage even more. Probably, I mean, this isn't necessarily going to be a big issue for some people, but if you're just a super casual player, you then might be stuck with trying to remember which ship has which gimmick, because if you're more into the game or playing more often and you follow dev blogs or watch us or watch other people that talk about Warships news, you might know that this will need a couple of minutes and it'll have a potentially super accurate devastating hit at its disposal. And that's the point where you have to be extra careful in whatever ship you're in. But the super casual player isn't necessarily going to know any of that and might just get blatted out of nowhere and be like, what the hell was that? They weren't hitting me that accurately before. So it's funny to me because it kind of goes against what Wargaming have said in the past, is that the reasons they haven't made certain changes, or they do make certain changes, is to not make things overly complicated for the majority of their players. And that's sort of what they're doing with these ships. They're adding this extra layer of complication on top of just the normal gameplay.
But I suppose you've got to look at it from the other. If we look at it from the other point of view, though, how do you keep the game interesting for players who've been playing 30,000, 40,000 games now?
Well, that's true. There's that.
And you've got to give them a new challenge, both from a mechanic perspective of how do I combat, how do I deal with this, and how do I get this effectively working for me as quick as possible? As you know, but at the same time, you've got to make it, like you said, new player, new tier 10 player, new tier 8 player, friendly as well. I mean, we've got to bear in mind, okay, that this is a game that through monetization, you can, if you so desire, you can go and spend 55 quid and get yourself a shiny new tier 9 and get blatted continually and hate the game and wait in which you haven't spent the money on it. Because there's no protection between you and everybody else the minute you press that buy button on those ships. So, you could be literally having people being fed 50, 60,000 HP's worth of premium tier 9 ship just because they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. But again, that opens a whole new can of worms as to how should it be done.
Yeah, I mean, like you compare this as an online game to. I mean, it's kind of unfair to compare it to like traditional MMOs, like MMORPGs and that style of thing, where there's a whole separate slate of end game content. But it kind of feels like that's what they're trying to implement here. I mean, we've talked about it in the past in terms of sucking down credits, from the economy, which also does seem quite explicitly designed to do. But at the same time, I suppose it is also on that level of something for those players that have all the tier 10s. Well, what more do you give them? I guess. What more can you do to keep their interest in the game?
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about where we are in the term of Warships, it's entering that difficult 6th year and onwards position. If we think back to World of Tanks, when we were involved there, you've played it, Pointy, I've played it, and once that got past the 6th year, what did they do? They basically re-platformed the entire game with World of Tanks 1.0. And since then, they've been making change after change after change, just like we see continually in Warships. But they basically re-platform the game to that new game engine that they put it on. And you've seen players going through the same pains that happen that we in Warships see very regularly. The difference being obviously that we've seen we've had it from virtually 7.5 onwards, whereas Tanks have had it from 1.0 onwards from official release. So I think it's just the way that the game and the company are going in terms of how they want the game to go forward. And it's been said time and time again, and I think it still rings true no matter what. Players such as ourselves, players such as as the core group of players that you sometimes go and look to watch, we're not actually the target audience of this game and the company anymore, because they can only sell us one ship. They can only push so far before you see the kind of upset and anger that gets put out, and you push those players into the disenchanted but still just enjoying the game for fun. And as those, they're now actually an expense to the game. They're not actually an income to the game in the normal sense.
Kind of. You have to balance that against, though, that even players that have stopped paying but are still playing still have some value, because if you end up in a situation where you have a tonal population decline, that can end up just like tanking even an otherwise quite fun game.
Ships does have a respect. There's no way you can get away from it. And, you can laugh and joke about it all you want. There is only one server for World of Warships where statistically and numbers based, the player population is still rising, and that's the C server. It's Asia. For whatever reason, that server grouping is still on the up. So whatever's going on within that particular area, whatever people are saying, they're enjoying it, and it's growing there. It's now at the level it was when the game was first put out in 2015. So it's got a really nice bell the Russian server, which is by far the biggest in terms of, or should be in terms of the biggest, that has had nothing but a continuous downslide since launch. If you look at the EU and the NA servers, now NA is the biggest one in terms of a cash perspective for WG because it hits a very specific point for the NA community that, again, like we've said, there's virtually no other games actually do match. That it hits on that naval history, it hits on the stuff that they've maintained and looked after, but it's not maintaining the player base. The player base is falling off. The numbers are there to back up everything I'm saying. You can say, oh well, it's only a gradual decline, but 2020 figures you have to basically ignore from a statistic point of view because it's a huge anomaly. Every single online-based game or multiplayer game online, irrespective of whether it was CS:GO, World of Warships, World of Tanks, Armored Warfare, anything that is a multiplayer online game, saw a huge surge. It's one of the few industries over the pandemic that's had growth because, what you're going to do when you sat at home, you either watch TV, play or computer games. That's pretty much the general thing. I know there's a lot of other stuff that's done as well. People going into TikToks and all that kind of stuff. But it's one of the biggest things. And it's all growth. So you have to extract those numbers and just ignore them. So when you do that, you can't get away from the fact that they're down. And, they've spent a huge amount of money on advertising. I mean, example being, they put a Streamlabs campaign out that offered anywhere up to $3,000 to content creators such as ourselves to stream the game and bring in new players. If they're offering that, I made friends with about 5 different streamers, all of whom were doing this Streamlabs campaign. And a couple of the things that it said in the terms and conditions were that you would only receive payment for that player if they got 2 ships. It wasn't clear on whether they were premium ships, non-premium ships, and stuff like that. And it turns out then it wasn't. It was just tech tree ships. And to be fair, you get 2 ships, so grind tier 1 and tier 2. You can do that in the first 20 games of World of Warships. And there are streamers out there, and 5 in particular who I've made friends with, like I said. They've done that. They've done the campaign, uninstalled, walked away. That's it. Done. They're never going to play the game again. Their communities aren't playing the game anymore. I've not seen anybody who was involved in those 5 streamers playing the game since. So, they've spent, if you take those 5 there, say they got the $3,000, that's $15,000 that they've spent on marketing for no return, for a blip on your numbers to say, oh, look, yep, there we go, bing. But you're not seeing continual play-based growth.
That kind of ties into, I think, just issues with the lower tiers generally. Like, I think if they, and this is purely hypothetical, but maybe if they were going back and starting from scratch, they would do a totally different tiering system or start in a different place, or I don't know, just maybe design the lower tiers of the game differently somehow. But that's the kind of thing that's quite hard to retrofit.
Yeah, it's very hard to retrofit.
I don't think that the lower tiers are that problematic in how the ships play there. It's more like with faster progression and with the way they release new lines, nobody plays them anymore. Like, even when a new line comes out starting at the tier 2, nobody's gonna grind it from the tier 2 because they have the tier 5 or 6 after the release event. So, if nobody plays the lower tiers, then it takes ages to find a game at the lower tiers, so nobody plays the lower tiers. It's like, it's a problem, right? So basically these days, Warship starts at tier 5 more or less, where you can find PvP battles, maybe tier 4 or so, and then up to tier 10, and now they're just adding up. Instead of trying to get people in the lower tiers, they're like, okay, we just add up on the top, right? Which also I think is
where we started, really the topic we started with.
Yeah, but I also... no problem. But it also, I think, is that they are just running out of balancing room at tier... tier 10 isn't the well-balancedest tier, I guess. Let's be honest. but they at a certain point they are like, okay, we like there is only so much you can change the numbers so that all is equally strong, right? You have to, on the more crazy ideas you have, then you'll just basically enter new tier. So they've given up and they're like, okay, we have all these ideas what else we could do, but we can't make it balanced at tier 10, so we just add another one. And I mean, it's in a way when your power creep gets so big, then it's just easier to add a new tier instead of making even more of a power tier 10s, and then you need to... I mean, they already have the problem that there are so many old lines that need attention. It's easier if just to, instead of adding too much to power creep at tier 10, just make it 11.
I mean, yeah, they've basically invented a brand new meme, haven't they? Oh, look, we've buffed Zhao by 50% of what we nerfed him. And, yeah, I mean, the thing is, you want new people to get involved in the game. You want to see why so many of us do really enjoy the game. Because you go around so many streams, you listen to what people are saying, and you do wonder why people are playing it, because they sound so downhearted about it. There's so much soul, there's so much angst and anger about it. But that's the thing. Underneath, it's a topic and a thing that a lot of us all really enjoy. And if you can forget the politics of the game, if you can forget the mechanics of the game, if you can forget what they're basically doing to the game, underneath is a game that so many of us started to play and enjoyed and still do play because we enjoy. And it's when you get caught up in stuff like what's being said on the dev blogs, what's going on Reddit, and you go and visit streams and stuff like that, that suddenly it kind of puts that big flip on it, and it's like, right, here we go again. And it's you've got to somehow step away from that. And a lot of us have stepped away. I mean, we've all stepped away from the CC program. And for me, it's the politics. A lot of what I'm glad I'm no longer involved in is the politics, which is there's a lot of really good friends that we've all made in that program, out of that program, that you may not have met previously or before. Daft as this may sound, Mr. Pointy up there, I would never have thought of saying hello to you when you were at Tankfest like 3 or 4 years ago, or even anything like that. And yet, we now do.
Yeah,
that's kind of the for little old me, something that's a bit still eye-opening. But on the other side of it, when you start to get into the politics of the game, and let's be fair, anything to do with mechanic changes, dev changes of the game, it's basically the gaming equivalent of the politics world, isn't it? It just screws everything up so much. It really does. It stops.
Yeah.
It stops the game being for fun. A game is a fun environment. Why are so many people playing New World? Why are so many people playing Minecraft? Why do I spend so many inordinate hours playing Space Engineers and stuff like that? Because it's not real life. Because it's just pixels on a screen that I can just have fun and not, and start afresh with. When you start looking behind the curtain, it's I can't remember who said it. Never meet your idols.
Yeah,
when you look behind the curtain and you look at the dev blogs and you look at all the mechanics of the game, you take away the fun of it being a game. That's it for me.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but it's just like there is so much silliness going on there where you ask yourself, and it's oftentimes it feels like that they are just making decisions that hurt everyone. They hurt the game and therefore they hurt them because they hurt their own player base and they don't even gain. Like if they make a decision that makes them money, at least you understand why it's happening. But what makes me so sad is if I see decisions where I feel like everybody loses, right? They lose as a company because they drive away players, and we lose because we have not such a good game to play, right? And you just sit there and you stare at it and you're like, there must be a logical reason to it, but unfortunately there isn't. It's just that they they lost connection to their own game in a sense, and they make just silly decisions that, you know, and you just are a bit sadder then.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's bringing in these tier 11 super ships. Do you know what? I've got no problem with it because it's nice to have that what if scenario that historians like to think about. You know, what would have happened if Bismarck wasn't sunk? What would have happened if Tirpitz was allowed out of the fjords? What would have happened if Musashi and Yamato hadn't been sunk and Japan hadn't been pushed back in a corner? You know, stuff like this allows you to experiment and play around with it and see potential what ifs, what could have been done. But at the same side, then when you think that it's being put into a game where it's 15v15 and it's a game where they're still testing submarines in the same tier as they're going to be then bringing these ships into test, and you know, suddenly, like you said, the silliness starts to go off the chart. You know, if you look on the best, I mean, the other thing today is how is this game marketed on Steam? And in there, it says World of Warships, and then underneath it's multiplayer online, and then ships or something like that. But then underneath there, in a lovely box, it says the word realistic.
Yeah, it's funny when you see like I've been watching some Linus Tech Tips videos recently. And it, you know, populates a bunch of older ones, and some of them have been sponsored by World of Warships. And the marketing spiel they gave him to say was that all of the ships in the game have, you know, they've been lovingly scanned from real life, kind of thing. And it's like, what? No, no, that's just a straight up lie.
Yeah. No. So here you go. Yeah. Naval combat, free to play, massive
I think
multiplayer.
the way things are advertised is, it's just,
historical.
This game is definitely not that.
Yeah, according to Steam, it's a naval combat, free-to-play, massive multiplayer, naval, World War II, tactical, PvP, historical multiplayer, online co-op, team-based, realistic, simulation, action, third-person shooter, PvE, military war, co-op.
Some of those at least will be like user-submitted tags, so sometimes they can get a bit silly on Steam.
I suppose, I mean, you know, it says we can enter a new tag here, so I suppose we can put fake news. There we go. Right, so I need fake news to it as well, like all you everybody. That's a live Steam change for you all to be able to find World of Warships. Just search for fake news.
That's good. I mean, your tag has more truth than a lot of what they had already, so, you know.
That's the thing, okay. I mean, the thing is, you know, we can sit and take the Michael out of it and have a giggle about that. Don't want to have to do that, though.
I mean, you have to, I guess, the problem is, right, we are all very emotional about this game because we have played it for so long. You have to, I guess, and you have to take a little bit of a step back and just play a few rounds when you have fun, stop when you don't have fun anymore. And I guess take also like the dev blocks with a little less emotion. Like if I read the submarine, I could dev block, like I could get very angry about it. But, you know, at some point you just have to sigh and be like, well, we have to live with it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately we do.
But yeah, I mean, also, you said you don't have a problem with like the tier 11 ships. Me neither. You know, I feel like there could be a lot of fun. You know, a lot of it depends on obviously how they are then balanced, because a lot of those mechanics, like, I mean, the Hanover has better secondaries. I don't feel like that will break anything. The autoloaders, they have already rebalanced them some. They are like, I don't know, like, I mean, the idea is, I think, that you have a short-term burst, and then you go through a longer reload if needed. It's a bit like a reload booster, but different, in a sense.
I was going to say, it sounds very much like, basically, they're just trying to tweak the mechanic of the Austin.
Yeah, in a sense, right? But it's in a sort of a more extreme version of a reload booster.
Again, it's how far can they push it?
Yeah. But at least I've decided that I need a new tier for this and don't do it at tier 10. So, but we'll have to see how it turns out. Like originally, I think the French was too strong and the US was too pointless, and there are already tweaks announced to those. I haven't tried them out myself, but we gotta find out, I guess.
And they're already clearly very worried about the Yamagari as well, because they've not given the Yamagari any sort of special features.
Yeah,
Yamagari,
it's like the torps that you can switch between in battle.
Yeah, you can literally just decide whether your industrious little crew are going to load the deep waters or the non-deep water torpedoes.
Oh, one of them deep water?
Yeah. It's got that's the thing with the selectable torpedoes. You've got deep water and you've got non-deep water torpedoes.
Yeah, and I think one are 12 and one are 20 kilometers, right?
Yeah, range 12k, and one's range is 20k.
I mean, I like in a sense that flexibility, because the 20-kilometer torpedoes are so situational. I mean, once in a while I play it in a shimmer for fans and giggles, because you can still do well with them, but the 12 are usually better. There are very rare situations where you want the 20s, and you never get into them when you load the 20s. Like, it's like when you play that 20-kilometer shimmer, in your mind, you are like, what if I get into this situation? It would be cool, and it never happens. But if you could switch them in-game, that would obviously make them a lot more useful. So I in a way, I like that you have more flexibility. Obviously, you need to look at how it's balanced, because they're going to have like also 3 more torps, and shimmer torps hurt. If you have 18 suddenly instead of 15, and you have the additional flexibility of bringing out the 20s when you need, this is hard to balance. There might be going a bit overboard there.
This is sort of off topic, but I think there's probably a reason why after, was it last year? We had the Kitakazi.
Kitakami testing.
That was it. Back for a little bit, and it's just kind of disappeared off into the void again. So I think even with their attempts to rebalance that for tier 10, it was still...
No, they've balanced the game around the Kitakami now, because they've taken out team damage. Let's be brutally honest, okay? We know. I mean, we don't know, because obviously, if we did know, we couldn't talk about it, because I don't know about you guys, but my point of view is that we were under NDA in the program. Anything we knew then, we still, and we know now, it's still under NDA unless it's been released. So obviously, we don't go into that, but it doesn't take a genius. You don't have to look at it and think, oh well, we can't put Kitakami in because previously it had the highest team kill ratio ever of anything put into the game, excluding maybe old world artillery and world of tanks. But it's now, they've now literally gone to the game and said, you know what? What's stopping us selling this ship that clearly everybody wants to buy? Well, the fact that it does so much team damage. Okay, well, let's take away team damage. Ta-da! Problem solved. And if you want to go pink in World of Warships quick, just give them about a month and a half, because Christmas and Christmas boxes, you'll soon be able to go pink for Christmas after spending God knows how much on boxes, because it's going to be in boxes. We know, we've all got it. We all know it's in our gut, isn't it? I mean, we know that Marlborough's coming. We know that Incomparable's coming. We know that Repulse is coming. These have all been announced. This isn't nothing new. We all know that Christmas boxes are on the way. I don't know if we want to jump ahead a bit, but in the dev blogs, they actually say they're going to tell us what the drop rates of all the ships in the boxes are going to be. Which, you know what? I will say that's strike one for us, for everyone who walked out and everyone who said, look, this is, and the fact that they're doing that, they're doing it ahead of schedule, which is good. But we're
doing it. I think we covered this in the last podcast we did a bit. Obviously, we had a little more detail since then. But yeah, it's like from November, new stuff from November onwards, and then basically they aim to have everything done by next April. So even stuff like the Black Friday.
The Black Friday is not included.
Is it not? I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, if you like you said, they said they want to wait from November onward.
Mhm.
Black Friday is out. Black Friday is supposed to be roughly the 26th of November, or in short, just before this. What they're saying in that blog. So I'd like to see it done sooner. I think we all would, but with what they're saying in terms of dates and time, what they're saying in terms of times and things on there, I don't expect it. They've said, they've said they're going to do it for the with the complete drop rates for each ship in the Santa gift containers we disclosed. Yes, we will share that. Super containers, frankly, super containers I can give or take because you either get them or you don't get them. The stuff that's in super containers is, barring the camos and the fact that you can no longer farm debt flags, is really good. But I don't mind super containers with it being you've got a chance of getting at the end of the day, super containers are free in the game. You either get them or you don't get them, or you spend your recruitment points on it and get it. It's fine. I can live with that. What I can't live with is the fact if I'm going to exchange cash for anything, and I don't know what my chances are. And I think that's that. I think that the fact that we're going to see that. I'd like to see it for the Black Friday crates, but I don't think we will do. If we do, I'll be quite happy.
I have found in an earlier dev blog, big upcoming yearly activities such as Black Friday and New Year will therefore already be affected by this change. It's on the previous 7th of October. Yeah, random mechanics and drop rates. There is a sentence in there. And they say,
I was remembering then. Okay.
they say afterwards, starting in November, all new containers will be sold and disclosed, but they say earlier in a line that Black Friday will already be affected.
Do you know what I actually feel?
They've committed to it, so let's hope that they stick to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we did see a perfect example of the World of Warships community, though, didn't we? They announced that, they showed the image, they're saying, look, here's what we're doing, so you can see the drop rate and understand your chances and everything. And what's the one thing that everybody picked up on and took the piss out of?
I think they had like a flag wrong or something, or name.
Yeah, that they had a Dutch flag next to the Dunkirk. Rather than, reading and seeing, actually, you know what, here's their statement of intent, and here is a piece of action that we can link back to that statement of intent. No, forget that. You put a Dutch flag next to a ship. It's like there's bigger things going on in that article than a Dutch flag next to a ship. Granted that for some people that's a really big thing, but it's typical of the problems that we are going to see whenever they do stuff. Because on one hand, there's the big change. Look, we're going to show you there's the drop rate for the ship. There's your chance of getting the ship. But because of one simple mistake, everybody ignores that and goes, so when are we getting this Dutch Dunkirk? And I don't know if you guys saw any. I saw a few tweets that Chromatica did. Chromatica is the NA social media manager. She's a really, really nice person, and she tries very, very hard. And she got so much stick just for a flag that it's the same colours, it's just different way around. And nobody picked up on the fact. Everybody picked up on that rather than what the article was about. And that's one thing that is a little bit. I feel a little bit sorry for.
I would kind of more, to be honest, that specific thing, I would more chalk that up to social media just being kind of inherently a dumb medium in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But it's the fact that, for me, it's the fact that everyone just picked up on that rather than saying, thank you for letting us know about the change, really good, or whatever people thought about it. Nobody took a blind bit of notice about it at all. They all just ranted, raved, and took the mic about a flag in a picture. And it is social media being social media. But this is where I'm very odd amongst all of us, because I don't like seeing that. I don't like it when we see people just jump on a bandwagon and follow it rather than thinking, actually, look at what actually is going on behind it. It's a picture. pictures, you can put a million different pictures up, and what one person sees as one thing, one person sees another. You show somebody from Hindu an image of, I suppose the best one is the Hindu and Nazis, isn't it? They both have an image that's both have an image together.
Mhm.
Yeah. You show someone from Hindu. You show someone who's a practicing Hindu that image versus is it Hindu or is it Buddhism?
I can't actually remember. No,
But yeah, it's two different people. Yeah,
Mhm.
two different people, the same image. They have two different views on it. An image is an image. What it means to one person, it doesn't mean to another person. Read the words and read what's actually being included in it.
Yeah,
before you
context
make a
matters,
decision.
basically.
Context is a big thing.
Yeah, it's always a shame when like I understand that a lot of people are just not very happy with wargaming, so they latch on everything that they can find just to vent the frustration. But if you want to mend this rift and if you want to get this game to a better place, both sides need to come together. And when wargaming does something good, you need to acknowledge it and be like, yeah, that's the right step in the direction. We want more of that. And then if they do something bad, then you can give criticism again and be like, no, that's really not what we want, right? It's always best if
you're not at least trying to be even-handed, if you're only there to just like continuously bash on them, then that's a very different agenda, really.
Yeah.
Which I think some people do take that view of things.
Oh yes.
So yeah, I guess we kind of finished with Superships. Is there anything else we want to? Like, at least they're making an effort with this dev blog to point out that, and to be fair to them, I mean, the average person's grasp of statistical anything is probably not great. I mean, there's the famous thing of I can't remember which burger chain it was, like In-N-Out or somebody, but some US burger chain that was like, right, we're going to outdo McDonald's quarter pounder, and we're going to offer people a third pounder.
Oh yeah,
and then it did really poorly because people thought that the third pounder was less than a quarter pounder, and were like confused about that. So like even just that kind of really simple kind of number, was enough to trip people. But I mean, they kind of make the point here that statistics and probabilities is not necessarily like it's not an easy to intuit thing necessarily.
My fun and games, though, don't take it away from me. Sorry, I'm sorry. You both know how much of a geek I am when it comes to this, and how much of a stickler I am with it. So whenever they put any numbers up, if I can disprove or draw an intangible line, I will draw the intangible line on it. And on this occasion, and on this occasion only, almost, what was written and what they said in terms of the numbers, in terms of the drop rates and everything like that, was more important than taking the mick out of them for, showing the probability of getting showing the probability of getting a Dutch Dunkirk. Which, if I want to stick on it, and okay, damn well I will, then it should have had a 0 above it. Should have. But I mean, it doesn't. The flag doesn't. The flag. When you say the flag doesn't matter, you know that there's going to be people going, "Oh, you don't like nation X flag? Who's wrong?" Or you? No, it's none of that. I don't care where you're from. I'm friends with anybody. More about what it shows and what it is. That's the more important thing for me.
Yeah, I agree there.
I'm definitely going to be interested to see how this works out for. Like, it's going to be a while before we necessarily see the full impact, but what that revealing of drop rates will mean for I mean, only Wargaming will know what it'll mean for them in terms of,
Mhm.
of sales, but also what it might mean then in terms of what they like the kind of offerings that they then decide to make to their players. Like, is it going to change how they do things with containers and crates and
I'll make a prediction for you
chance-based
both.
things?
I'll give you both a prediction, and here's what's been mulling over in my head since they put out a couple of these dev blogs on this. I think we're going to go back. I think maybe it's going to take 2 years, maybe 2.5. I think we're going to go back to how it was around about patch 7.2-ish. So patch 7.2 was where they first was I think if I remember the numbers correctly, that's when they did the Royal Navy destroyers, and that was the first ones. If I get it right in my head, I have to double check it, but that's where they first did the random loot box sort of thing for that wasn't Christmas, that wasn't Halloween, it wasn't anything like that, but where they actually did the Royal Navy destroyer reveal. You know, how you could get them out of the box and things like that. Prior to that, if you wanted to get the ship, yes, sometimes, for example, Black Fridays and Christmas and stuff like that, if there was a special ship that was coming out, you could simply exchange pounds, pence, and shilling for it, or you could buy the boxes. I think that's what we're going to end up going. That model will be going back to, because then you're giving us, the customer, us, the players, the choice that, right, okay, here is ship A. You can either buy it or you can gamble for it. Choice is yours. If you want to buy it outright, there you go. Exchange, job done, it's yours. If you don't want it, you don't buy it. It's absolutely fine. Or if you want to try and get it cheaper, you can buy it in the boxes. If they go down that route, my gut tells me that you'll get people who will view it and say, well, if I can get the ship for that much, I'll get that for that much, and be done with it. Those that they're not interested in taking risk. They're not interested in being told you have to gamble to get it, and you might get thousands of camos that you don't want. I mean, how many of us have got Halloween camos that don't use them? How many of us? This is going to sound really weird for an Englishman, and I apologise, but I have got racks of Union Jack camos. I don't use them because they've got such poor bonuses. If you give it a decent bonus, I'd use it. But these other camos that we've been given for free that have got better bonuses, and I use them. But if you give me the option, can I go and buy the Marlborough for 55 quid, or can I get it in boxes and I'll have to spend 30, 60, 70, 80 for a chance to get it? Okay, I'll just buy it outright. Job done. I'm happy. Whereas somebody might decide, actually, I could do with some coal, I could do with some flags, I could do with some camels, I could do with some free XP. I'll grab some boxes and give it a go. And if I get it, woo. If I don't, I've got stuff that I want. That's how it used to feel to me as a player before I joined the program and when I was playing the game. Same with the boxes. The only other thing I could see them doing that I think would be a big improvement is potentially bringing on what Gaijin do. So a lot of people say that Gaijin don't do loot boxes. Sorry, you're wrong. They do. It's in the game. 300 gold, 299 golden eagles, or whatever they call them. Golden doobly what's it thing is. And you've got about 8 or so in a row, and you can either get your doubloon, you can get your doubloons plus 1 back. You can get premium time and stuff like that, or you'll get the vehicle. However, they only let you go to a certain level on the boxes before you actually get the vehicle outright. And it works out to be about the same as if you were buying it cash in hand, which Gaijin are quite expensive. They're like 60 quid or something like that for the vehicles.
Yeah, depending on the tiers, they're kind of they've gotten to the point where it's even more so than warships and tanks.
Yeah, but they have loot boxes in the game that you can get certain vehicles at certain battle rating, but you won't spend more than if you bought it outright. The only difference being, if you buy the eagles for to get the boxes, you get more back than just and vehicle. but they also have that player market as well, which is a den of iniquity, which is scary. And I'm glad we don't have that in Warships, even though we have just seen what I consider to be the biggest con of all times just occur, that none of the current CCs, none of the ex-CCs, none of us. Well, I don't know if you guys did. I might have missed it. If I did, I'll hold my hands up and say I'm sorry. I don't know. The biggest con of all time, I think, in World of Warships was the Schlieffen.
You mean with like the auction?
Yeah, that was kind of...
That was a huge con.
Yeah,
there's no other way of putting it. It's a huge con because to get a Schlief
in the last podcast.
Because the thing is, to get that ship, you had to pre-agree to buy however many 1,000 doubloons you wanted to bet on. And if you didn't get it, all you're left with is an account with a stack of doubloons on. And would you buy those doubloons would you buy those doubloons normally? For me, no, not a cat in hell's chance. It's a tech tree ship. I'll get it for free just while I'm using my free XP when it goes live. All these good intentions, all these statements of intent. We want to do this, want to do better, we want to understand the community better, but here you go, gamble away, and you have to give us X number of pounds worth of money to make our accounts look good before we can even tell you whether 1,000 of you are lucky enough to get a Schlieffen.
Yeah, doing that as doing it that way. Yeah, it is absolutely like it's taking monetization of tech tree ships to the nth degree. It's absolutely like it doesn't get more FOMO than that, basically.
Yeah.
Because some people are just going to have the doubloons sat around anyway, but there are going to be other people that are like, okay, yeah, I'll skip the grind. I'll just buy a bunch of doubloons and try an obscene bid and see if that works, kind of thing. And the fact that it's kind of like an uncapped bid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I think someone was saying you had to use, was it 25 or 26,000 doubloons was the lowest bid or something that's been bandied around.
Right.
Which, if that's the case, then you would have personally put in not short of 70 quid into the game.
For a tech tree ship.
For a tech tree ship that you'll be able to get for free. So you've spent £70 just to be able to turn around to people and go, look what I got 4 weeks before you. It's not a fashion statement. It's a stupidity statement.
But you have to say, like, they used to gamble away the tier 9s. Like, there have been people who spent what could you spend on, like, the last one, like on the Dutch. So if you went through all random battles, you spent 70,000 doubloons for a tier 9.
Yeah, it's 72,000 doubloons. So that
it's
was
pretty bad, but it's not limited to 1,000. It's not cranking up the FOMO factor to the maximum.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that spending that much on the game, if you were going to, it would be so much better value for money if you knew where you were going to play the game. Just buy premium time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing.
Especially with a tech tree ship that you can just grind quicker using that premium time and get all the other benefits of premium time on like everything else.
At least they did it with a tech tree. Imagine if they put on like a Kamikaze or a Belfast or something like that. That would feel like truly scammy, because if that's the only way to get it, that would feel like really scammy, I think.
I mean,
for a tech tree ship, it's like, it's up to you, right? If you really want to spend that much money. I mean, it's a bit of a scammy way how they give the early access away, but in the end of the day, I feel like you just need to be a bit patient. Everyone can get it, so it's at least, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this, because in one way it's a scummy way of doing it, and the other way I feel like, okay, it's a tech tree ship, right? So nobody should feel forced to do it. If they do it with a Belfast, then I'd feel like it would be really bad.
These mechanics, they're all about manipulating people and playing on people wanting to, click a button.
I mean, people want to have everything, and they want it right now, instead of waiting like 2 months and then having to grind for it. But I don't know. I mean, you're right. It would be worse if it was some super rare
premium ship. And like I said, World of Tanks has done this. They did this with the gold Type 59 and the gold, what was it?
Yeah, gold
the
type,
heavy tank. I can't remember what it was now. But,
oh, that was that QEZ11 thing. It was the one that basically, I think it was 25 million credits or something was the bid to even get in on that. Yeah. You mentioned Type 59. Funny story for you. Somebody I know spent the 25,000 gold to get it. Yeah. Do you remember when they did? They did a series about a month afterwards, and you got a random. It was another follow-on to the black market on World of Tanks, and the final thing you could unlock for 1,500 gold was a key to unlock another bite of a cherry, and it would cost you 5,000 gold, so substantially less than the 25,000 everybody bought. My Type 59 gold cost me 5,000 gold. I don't buy that. I got a tier 8 for 15. I got a tier 8 premium matchmaking gold Type 59 for 15 quid. And everybody else spent how much on it? This may kind of not shock some of you. It might shock you a bit. I'm a bigger supporter and whale, I suppose you would call me, in World of Tanks than I am in World of Warships, even though I play World of Warships more than I play World of Tanks now. Because there's only really the campaign vehicles and a couple of the bond vehicles that I don't have in World of Tanks. I've still maintained it. This is how bad I was in World of Tanks, and not many people know this except for the guys who I play with in Bobs and stuff. You know the Defender and the Object 252U? Yeah?
I don't know.
They were the ridiculously broken ones in World of Tanks. I've got 4 of them because I've got them on my EU and my NA account. I've got 2 Alpine WZ-111, WZ-11. I've got. I'm ashamed to say this. I've virtually got 2 accounts that have got quite a lot of the stuff on it. That's how bad I am in World of Tanks. I'm still doing it now.
But do you have the, how was it called, Panzer something J?
Yeah, got a Panzer 2J on both accounts. I've got a BTSV on both accounts.
I should say I have a Panzer 2J as well, but it was gifted to me by a completely ridiculously generous viewer. Someone that said they were a friend of Jingles, actually. It was kind of out of the blue, and I'd actually checked with Jingles because it was a huge amount of, it was like the Panzer 2J,
quid.
And it was like a huge pile of doubloons, and technically we're buying the doubloons and getting the 2J as a bonus. But I was like, wait, is this for real? And it turned out, no, it was in fact entirely real.
The only way you could get it, the reason I got my 2J on my EU account was April Fool's Day. They put it on sale. They slipped it into the premium shop, didn't tell anybody. And I saw it in there on April Fool's on the morning because I was there and I thought, nah, I'll buy it. I'll just get a load of doubloons and we joked your message on the screen. I thought it's a full-on joke, this. And I still went ahead and bought it because it's a 2J, it's for sale. Oh, buy! So I bought it and it's there in the account. I'm like, it's not an April Fool's. And I sent a message. His mummy 85 it is. Him and me used to be completely against each other collecting who could collect the most. It was ridiculous. We should never have got into it. It's literally like a full-on arms race. Who can get the most premium times the quickest? And it was there, and he was like, "Is it real?" I was like, "Well, I've just clicked buy, and it's in my garage." "No, it's not." "Well, go on, there you go. Invite you to a platoon. Look, it's there." And he's like, "Right, mine, bought." And he's like, "Oh, wow." But we've done some we do. I mean, people take the mick and call people whales and stuff like that for how much they get attached to a game and spend on it. World of Tanks, I was that. I was that person. World of Warships, to a degree, before we joined the program, I was that person. I'm Wargaming's #1 customer. Unfortunately, I'm addicted to the games. I openly admit that I'm addicted to the games because I like playing them. I have so much fun with them. I don't like, since joining the CC program and since getting into the politics side of it and seeing all the dross and the crap and everything that goes on behind it, and seeing all the arguments and everything, I have to detox that out of me to just say, look, I'm having fun playing the game. Swivel. Don't care about what you're doing in the back end. Don't give a toss about anything else. I'm going to play the game how I want to play the game and have fun. And if I want to spend money on it, I'll spend money on it. But at the minute, I don't want to spend money on it, but I still want to, I'm the collector in me, the hoarder, I must have it, is still strong. So I'm currently a very contrived person because Kerosage has just come out. It's like, fucking hate you, I don't like you, but I want to buy that shit.
At least you can get it for coal without spending money on it.
Trying to work out if I'm going to have enough coal afterwards to get the Toulouse when she comes out. Because, yeah, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see who wins. We'll see what wins out. I might just skip this one and for the first time ever skip something. Which will feel weird, actually, to not have it in the account. But yeah, no. So there you go. That's there you go. Something you never thought you'd get on your podcast there. Actual confessions of a wargaming addict who spends ridiculous amounts. I sat down and I scared myself brickless, for a better word of it. You know how you can pull out of out of PayPal, you can pull out all your payments, and because I do Excel, I put it all in a sheet. Yeah, I scared myself with how much I spent on wargaming products since 2012 when I started playing World of Tanks. Conservatively, it's almost touching 5 figures.
Okay.
I
mean,
now
it's
feel
one of
like
those
a pretty
things that-
small whale.
You always have to look at these things in the context, though, of like how much you've played the game. If you'd spent that much and barely played the game, then that would definitely, I would say, be a problem.
Yeah.
But
so World of Tanks, I'm knocking on 85,000 games on both accounts combined, excluding test servers and stuff like that. World of Warships, I'm knocking on I'm almost knocking on 10,000 on my EU account and about 1,000 on my NA, but that doesn't include alpha testing and stuff like that. I also don't really play any other game outside of tanks and outside of ships. That's changed over the last 6 months. Last 6 months I've got into Space Engineers, I've got into DayZ, a game that I shouldn't like, but for some reason I do. PUBG, a game I shouldn't enjoy, but I do. I don't know why.
I just I can't see you as a PUBG player somehow, but yeah, okay.
Oh, unbelievable. As Flambast and Stats, I've run them both over while being kicked out of the game. Phasmophobia. Yeah, I can't play Phasmophobia on my own. I can't play it in a random lobby or anything like that. I can play it with my friends. I can play it with people who are my friends. War Thunder, a game I got into it in 2014 when it came out, and then it was like, yeah, but and the only reason I got into it was because of the shit show that was otherwise known as World of Warplanes, which is still
somehow exists.
But the thing is, you know what? There's a lovely guy called the Noble Q. He's a really lovely guy. He streams he streams in the morning before he goes to work, which is normally when I'm getting up, sitting at my work desk at home, cup of coffee, and I'll say hello to him and have a look with him. He's the nicest guy ever, and his exact words about it were that the people who still play it are the ones who love it, and it literally is a game that's being kept alive for a very, very loyal player base. And, you know, those that play it love it. For me, I had the mistake of I had the War Thunder flight model
Mhm.
and I had the World of Warplanes flight model at that time. And there is no way on earth that the World of Warplanes flight model was anything even a milli% on the War Thunder flight model. It was just it was so many streets ahead. Things have changed now. The World of Warplanes flight model is immeasurably better. But unfortunately, for me, and this is for me as a player of both, too late. I've you know, it's too far down the line. I can't get any enjoyment out of it.
That's the kind of the history of that game now, is they just pushed it out far too soon. And
yeah, they tried to go to war with Gaijin, and you know, you try and rush something. I mean, yeah, we're talking about rushing something out. Submarines.
Yeah.
You know, try and rush something out that people aren't either ready for or. I mean, can any of you ever remember anything in the history of wargaming where 95.5% of the player base have said, "Nope, stuff it"? I can't remember. Even CV rework wasn't anywhere near a 95.5% rejection.
I think the only thing I can think of that maybe is in that same league is when they introduced the stunning mechanic to artillery in World of Tanks, and nobody really seemed to like that at all.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that came close, wasn't it? Was that.
Because stun mechanics are never a good idea in games. They never go down well, but people keep trying them.
The thing
at least,
is,
you know, player versus player.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken. Stun mechanic was put in 2.5 years ago. Was it now in tanks? About 2.5 years ago, maybe.
Longer, I don't know.
It might be longer. But it's taken that long for the player base to accept it because they've now introduced wheeled vehicles, haven't they, in there like about a year ago, and that now it doesn't matter. You might have been an ardent arty hater before, but now all of tractor vehicle drivers hate anybody using a wheeled vehicle. It's a very unique. Do you know what I'll say now? It's a very unique feeling to have somebody in a heavy tank and somebody in an artillery message you after a game when you played in a wheeled vehicle, both with the same thing saying noob. It's quite it's laughable and it's awesomely funny. The fact that two polar opposites before, who would quite easily rip each other to shreds in chat and stuff like that, and call each other the worst things under the name, are now united in their hatred of one thing. It's wonderful. It's wonderfully just so crazy. It's untrue.
I've stopped playing World of Tanks when they introduced personal missions, so I've never experienced the stun mechanic, the wheeled vehicles, or anything. Then, like personal missions, like they killed the game for me.
Personal missions made the game more fun for me because I was kind of at the point where the only other things I had to go for was the BAT 58 and the GWE 100. You know, I'm afraid I was one of the early adopters of the T92 and the Conqueror Gun Carriage.
Well, I can't judge too much. I've got a CGC as well.
Oh yes, I know. I used to watch you playing.
I was almost disowned by Circon for that, I think.
Yeah, my abiding memory of that is the one hits on the Jaegeries when they had 2200 HP.
Yeah,
and the lovely message you got afterwards.
It used to be. It was by far the worst vehicle, the most filthy, disgusting thing in the game.
No, there was something more disgusting, and that was the T92 with AP before they removed.
Okay,
AP.
I thought you were going to say the
Waffenträger.
The Waffenträger, yeah.
Oh no, the Waffenträger was fun because the Waffenträger used to go up against it in the 183 load HE, and it was a one hit. Because it was like 30mm on that ridiculous Darth Vader turret. You just hit, that actually. Do you know what? I know we're all World of Warships, but there's more memeage now back in World of Tanks with the fact that they're trying to. you know what? We in Warships hate the HE spammers, especially the fact that they're now going to introduce a full Tetri line of HE spammers. And yet, how much of a polar opposite is it? KV2, anything with the 122mm Russian derp in about tier 5 and tier 6 used to be the most fun vehicle you could just literally queue up and play. The simple pleasure of hitting something square in the side of the KV2 and watching it just disappear, no matter what tier you were against. I mean, how many times did either of you two purposefully fail platoon a KV2 with like a tier 8 or a tier 9 because you could, and you knew that if you saw a leopard on the other team, he'd be scared shitless of you?
I never failed division the KV2, but I had a lot of fun in it, in its property.
Oh, no, you're missing out. You're missing out on the sheer pleasure of seeing a Leopard 1 come round the corner, see you, and back up without even trying to shoot you. There really was nothing better than that, except catching one as it was trying to get away around the corner and getting stuck on a cliff and then just planting one straight in the back of it. And it was like 1100 damage. Zink. And of course, because you're a tier 6 and a tier 10, your XP and credits were ridiculous.
I don't know if I ever
do
really
apologise.
did that much, but I do have an abiding memory. This is just reminded me of it. It was actually a viewer replay someone sent me. They were in a KV2, and it was like normal matchmaking, but they were bottom tier, and they happened to get just the most narrow shot into the side armor of I think it was like an AC-48 or something like that.
Oh,
Tank destroyer, thin side armor, just straight up, because they rolled high with the HE, just straight up deleted it in one shot. It was just the most glorious, filthy thing ever.
The thing is that I apologise that my name was written in water in chat. Sorry, I know we've derailed and gone miles off topic. I apologise, but the thing is, better times in wargaming products where we all had fun and just laughed and giggled about them.
Yeah, I think those days for me, world attacks are long gone, but it still kind of applies in warships, kind of.
The thing is, I think there's more those kind of memories as they are now, and they are just memories now. I don't see the newer players coming in being able to experience that other than videos on YouTube, that might initially get their interest in the game, but they can't do it anymore. It doesn't exist. That's what the game was. This isn't what it is now.
Yeah.
Yearning for better times.
I mean, it has... World of Warships has felt a bit more off in the last weeks, I feel like, in the sense that you really have a feeling that these days most people in a battle don't know what the front and the rear end is of their ship. That's about the average experience of the player in a battle these days. And it has really... Because, there were always bad players, Sean. There were always weird battles around, right? But like in the last weeks, it really feels like anybody who knows what the front of a ship is has basically left.
You're saying that. Have you seen a picture of the Catributors? The Catributors has been designed for that, isn't it? Because the front and the back look the same.
Going forwards, just to go backwards sooner.
And the fact is, it doesn't have any rake on its funnel either, so it could be going either way. So it's been built for your comment.
Wargaming, we already knew this would happen, and they were prepared.
Well, they do say they're planning 2 or 3 years in advance.
True. You're a bit more happy, somewhat happier news, I guess. There is a closed test of a new map. Closed test means we aren't going to see it, but there are some screenshots. The new map is something that we've all been waiting for a long time. And there are some screenshots where we can see, like, the islands. Obviously, they show us all the favorite game mode for us all, Epicenter. That's also going to be a thing on this map. But also domination. It's, you can't see how high those islands are, so it's going to be hard to evaluate. But I don't know. I mean, it's
It doesn't seem like it's anything too radical. Probably the most interesting thing in this article is that there's no mention of it being tested in the standard game mode. It's just domination epicenter and this competitive domination mode.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, domination, 12v12 domination, the 3 cap circles, that's pretty much that's becoming more and more standard now than the straight out slugfest of 12v12 with 2 caps.
I mean, I've always preferred one to the other. I've made no secret of that.
Oh yeah, Epicenter's always been a pain in the neck. It's for me, Epicenter is I think it's like you said. It's the fact that people don't know the W key or choose not to press.
Yeah.
So, the only way you can win Epicenter is by contesting the Epicenter, and if you decide not to contest it, well, there's no point playing the game. You're not playing the objective, I believe is the correct word and the correct terminology.
You're just mentioning that this is going to be a hard map to contest the center on, because when I look at the epicenter placement, right, there are like 4 islands on the edge, but there isn't going to be a real island that offers you cover while you are inside the cap. So basically, the raiders can safely approach and raid at the center while you have 0 cover in there, and even worse, the islands are going to block your retreat in most options. So this looks like the perfect destroyer death trap.
It is a very closed-in epicenter, yeah.
Like, I mean, we will have to see the ranges, like how much raider can cover, but this looks like they designed to destroy a death trap center.
So there's a couple of points on there where potentially you can sneak in a destroyer and you've got some cover. But again, without seeing without us actually being on the map and actually seeing in terms of, if you look at, there's some points on there where the island is, you've got those little points on the island. If anything, looking at that, I'd say that map is more unbalanced towards anybody who starts where the green spawn is on that image. Because you've got you potentially got 3 positions whereby you can hide in order to either affect a cap or start capping that center point with some relative safety. Whereas coming from the north, from the red spawn, there's pretty much only one position I can see on there where you could be relatively safe from your opposition. But without actually us getting time on the map, that's just me speculating, looking at that map design.
You'd have to see how high the islands are and what the dimensions are, and you can probably, you can reverse into the center and then you probably have a way out, but it's going to be a very tricky, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what it looks like in the final version. I mean, this is
true.
Probably going to change a bit, but I imagine the central concept won't change too much. We'll see.
Okay, a new map. That's definitely something. So we already talked about the random mechanic changes. Then we have some actual balance changes that the new memes are coming out, in a sense. They gave the Sao 2,000 more hit points. This is going to make all the difference, and Sao will now reign supremo.
Sometimes they make these. I mean, okay, we've said in the past that it probably is better that they're now at the stage of, they make a little change here, and then 1 or 2 patches later they make a little change there, and it's easier to make fun of. But some of them do genuinely seem a bit baffling. Like, what's 2,000 hit points going to do for the Sao exactly?
I suppose it's one through and through shell from a Yami, so it can make all the difference on that.
I mean, the thing is, it's okay to make small changes, but they might have overdone it with the smallness of the changes in something. Like Petro getting a half-second first reload. Yeah, that was always the problem with the Petro, right? That half-second reload will mock it. It's not that it's incredibly tanky, it's so low in the water, it's not so easy to citadel the armor-like scheme. No, these are not the problems. The problem was that it definitely fired half a second too fast. Like, when they said they are going to make some changes to like ships, and they're looking into like Sao or Petro or Yang and something like that, I was kinda, I guess, a little bit more optimistic. But I mean, obviously, they might just give another half-second nerf in a month or two.
Yeah, and I mean, nerfing Stalingrad's reload, because that's the biggest problem with Stalingrad. Stalingrad's actually in a really good position, and I've only just got my Stalingrad after being the first ship that I got to test. I've just got my Stalingrad. Stop touching it already. I've not got a chance to ruin everybody's stats in it. Give me a chance to work on it. I mean, go on.
Since they nerfed the radar duration of Stalingrad, it's become a lot more. Well, okay, I'm looking at it mostly from like a destroyer perspective in that regard, I guess. But Stalingrad has always been a very popular ship, right? And the 12-kilometer radar is so disgusting to deal with as a destroyer, and having that lower duration has made it a lot more bearable in that sense. Obviously, it's still rather hard to kill.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that's always been the case, that playing DDs, if you see Russian radar on the other side, yeah, it's a bit 12k range, that's not great, but it's 12k for 25 seconds, and let's be fair, the current meta of the game is that if a DD is spotted for less than 30 seconds, people forget about it and don't shoot at it anyway. That's why I'm more worried about the American radar that lasts for 45 seconds plus, because then more and more people notice, and then the last 15 or 20 seconds they'll suddenly start shooting at you. So, with the Russian radar, it's 25 seconds, you spot it for 25 seconds, and then you disappear, job done, not a problem, you carry on zipping around and you disappear. Doesn't bother me.
I'd say it depends a lot on the map, right? Because there are some, like North, for example, has very strong radar positions for like a Des Moines or something like for US radar. But there are a lot of maps where like the Des Moines just doesn't cut it, for example, where the 10 just isn't enough. Whereas Destroyer, you can just sort of, I mean, depending on how the match goes. But there are a lot of captures where like, it's a Des Moines, that's fine, right? It won't be able to do much, or I'll be in radar such a short time because I'm just only 200 meters inside it in order to cap or something like that. Its 10 is often, I mean, it depends on the map, but in a lot of maps, it's just not enough. And the 12 is just that much more scary, even if it's a lower duration.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm more worried about the American radar because it means there's something closer, and I'm going to be spotted for a lot longer to get out of that radar than the 12k. If I'm spotted and I can, if I'm 12k away from any of the ships and I get spotted by radar at 12k, then you just reverse course and disappear, and you might, you're not too worried about it. The American one, because you're that much closer, that's what worries me a bit more with it, and the fact that you're spotted for so much longer with it. But
yeah,
one thing that I'm very happy with, by the way, that I keep very quiet about my love of it, so that it doesn't get known too much. But they're buffing my Buffalo. Yay!
Yeah, there are some nice buffs on this list. I mean, we did kind of skip over to the Stalingrad, but FDR's getting a nerf. Always welcome. Not a big one, though. Just to the plain health.
Yeah, which is already ridiculous.
Yeah.
So well, actually, no. It's gone from utterly ridiculous to ridiculous. So it's a start.
Yeah, there's some that have gotten reload buffs. Buffalo Kotovsky.
I didn't really play the Kotovsky.
Don't know. I've played it very much. Yang's getting a reload on its torpedoes.
Yeah,
which is still kind of long. But yeah.
By the way, I liked the Z44 buff, right? The Z44, when it came out, I basically said if you give this ship better concealment, it's gonna be an okay ship, but they refused. Well, the Z44 is basically, it was always just outclassed by a Huguenot, my opinion, right? And now it might actually be playable in that sense.
Remind me, because we obviously, we all tested Z44. When we first got it, it had 7.5 kilometer detection, and then they nerfed it by increasing its detection.
I don't remember, to be honest. I remember
honestly
that
can't
when the only thing that I remember is that I when it was released, I said that it would be a decent ship with a better concealment. Because the problem is it's 12-kilometer torpedo boat just with like German torps, so rather fast reload, low damage. But in a sense, it does the same as a Yu Yang, right? Not a Yu Yang, Yugomo. It's just a torpedo boat. And as a torpedo boat, you want good concealment, you want that stealth to do some spotting, to do some camping while you're torpedoing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just couldn't really do that with like 6.1. And now it goes down to like 5.8 or something, and that's a lot more reasonable, right? That makes the Z44 actually a ship
More
that
viable.
you might play.
Yeah. But of course, we're glossing over the really important changes here, guys, aren't we? The improvements to the secondary firing range of the Nino Bixar, the Chester, the Diana Lima, the Almatia Brewer, the Chikuma, the Conti de Cabio, the Petra Veliki, the Iron Duke, the Hawkins, the Emerald, the Dallas, the Leander, the Devonshire, and of course that well-known secondary ship at Tier 9, the Uzimo.
It does make me wonder what the small differences were, but it must be... I don't know.
I mean...
Of all the changes they could have been making to the game.
I mean, they say that those are bug fixes, so apparently there was just, But...
all the bugs that the game's got. I mean, come on, the biggest bug in World of Warships is the way that the port melts your GPU. Forget fixing the secondaries on Tier 2 secondaries. The only Tier 2 secondaries that anybody cares about is the Mikasa.
True.
Frankly, who plays the Emerald with a secondary build?
You can't. It's a cruiser. There aren't secondary skills anymore.
There's more. Quality of life changes that I think, personally, for me, I think that the player base would prefer. Number one, right at the top, stop the game rendering every bloody ship in your port. So you don't sit there and cook with your GPU at 80 and 90 degrees, rendering 300 or 400 ships if you've got ports that big, and causing it to bloody slow up and lag up. Just simple quality of life changes, not... who plays any of those ships with a set? I mean, Uzimo secondary build. Really? 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 Who is that? Where is that one player on all 4 servers who plays with that build? It's not me, because even I've learned. Is it you, Pointy?
So I do love secondaries, but not that much. I still only spec secondaries on ships where they make sense.
A Dana. A Tier 2 Dana. Why? I mean, of all the bug fixes...
I'm sure that's not the only thing they've been working on, TC.
But it's the fact that they're proud enough to put it in the dev blog. If they're going to put it in, we're going to meme the crap out of it. You know what? Let's go and get an Iron Duke and a Petra Veliki and let's secondary spec them. Why? Because apparently you've done something to them. Stop my PC melting. Fix, put submarines in convoy mode. Get them out of randoms until you know what you're doing with them, right? Rather than change after change after change. Just anything except stuff that's just going to cause ridicule. I mean, if we can take the mick and rip it apart like that for the meme, for the lol, for whatever, we miss all the stuff about the fact that actually they're starting. They've finally 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year down the line. We're seeing changes to some of the most powerful ships in the game. We're seeing changes to some of the weaker ships in the game. You gloss over all of that because look at the stupidity that's going on. You can say well done 100 times, but the minute you go, ha ha, look at that stupid mess, everyone goes, ha ha, look at that stupid mess. We said it before, context. That in context is not important. Nobody plays any of those ships secondary, because a majority of them you can't. 3 of them, I question sanity on doing it. I'd do it, but I'd question sanity.
I suppose you've a point that I don't think anybody would have missed it if they hadn't made a specific point of putting in a patch note about it. Nobody would have it's
a dev blog, not a patch note, right? In a patch notes, you have a misc section where your bug fixes will list this up, but like putting it in a dev blog with balance changes, I don't really care that much, but it just screams memes. But then again, a lot of the changes they made scream memes too. Even though they are good changes, they're going in the right direction, nerfing the right ships, buffing the right ships. It's the values or the way they are doing it. Like, for example, Torpedo Tube Reload reduced for the Yu Yang, right? Didn't like a few years back when they made the Yu Yang basically shit, didn't they just... They nerfed, I think, the torps and the guns, right? And they never buffed the guns again. They have since then buffed the torps 4 times or so, but never touched it. Like, the thing is, the Yu Yang might have been once upon a time a scary boat with Raider. But there are so many Raider destroyers, right, on higher tiers that are so much scarier. And the Yang just doesn't have the gun power to actually pull the Raider off and do something useful, right? You press your Raider button, then you shoot the enemy, and then you die, because the enemy was a better gunboat than you. So the thing is, if you want to make the Yu Yang more viable, you might need to address other points than just buffing its torpedoes. I guess you can play her as like a smoke torpedo boat-ish, but you will not get that much out of it, because there's also better options. And the deep waters are just no longer, I guess, the most scariest thing on the block. It feels like it's nice that the Yu Yang deserved the buff for years. And it's nice that they're addressing that. But I feel like they are once again just missing the point, right? It's not really the slightly better torpedo reload time that's going to bring the Yu Yang back.
Fu's made a good point in your chat there, saying that he doesn't agree with us, because everybody can just pile on a big issue. They need to communicate what they do when they make a change. The thing is, making changes to the game is fine. And the changes that they've listed above this bug fix note is fine. I quite happily say I don't mind the fact that they're telling us about these buffs, telling us about these nerfs. That's brilliant. That's good. They've always done that in the dev blog. They've not maybe shouted about it loud enough, but they've done it. It's the fact that they then tack onto the bottom of such a public publication. Oh, by the way, we're fixing secondary actions on these ships, and it's like, it to me, yes, tell us what you're fixing, but if you're just doing a bug fix. There's a section called Bug Fix, like you said, miscellaneous bug fixes on the patch notes. Use that. That's fine. Just tell us about your little tweaks and changes. Tell us about the big things that people are asking about. If people are saying, look, take Yu Yang, for example. Yu Yang was one of the better performing DDs. She wasn't miles ahead above everybody else. She was just slightly better performing. She's now tumbled to the bottom of the list. And when was the last time anybody saw a Yu Yang not in competitive in a random? You very rarely see many of the Pan-Asian DDs in randoms now. People just don't play them. There's no appeal to play the line. So it's asking the why question.
Yeah.
It is a balance change. Is it? I don't know. Is it a balance change or is it not a balance change? Fix an issue because of which the secondary battery firing range of several ships didn't match the systemic values. That's just a number change.
It doesn't say whether they've gone up or down for the individual ships, because of course it could be.
Yeah. It's a note tacked on them, and to me that fix. A dev blog, you tell us about what you're deving, what you're changing, what's actually going on. The bug fix is, I'd expect a game developer, any sort of developer, any sort of code writer, you do your bug fixes continually. there's no piece of code will carry on working seamlessly without support for anything. It could change the balance, but again, the thing is, the thing is, we don't know what it is. They classed it as a bug fix. What was the bug in the first place? How many people noticed it? How many people even mentioned it? What it is not really what I'm pointing at. What I'm saying is that, okay, you fixed numbers in a statistic chart for it. Fine. I'd expect that as a given. What else have you been doing though that's more important than that? So, for example, if we're talking about balance changes, there's a separate article on the submarines 2 weeks of random battle testing.
Yes.
In it, there's very little though in the way of changes that they're going to make. They say that moving forward, we're going to be doing this submarine popularity, stuff like that. There's more important things I think that they could be talking about in a balance change blog, which that one is. Bug fixes, do them day in, day out, night in, night out, all the time. Public test balance changes. To me, that's a different topic. But it is just to me, and I know that not everybody will agree, but to me, that's what I think it needs to be. It needs to be more pointed. It needs to answer a question more than providing us with a giggle.
I mean, the thing is that they didn't put details, right? If they had at least put the details in what they're changing, this isn't an issue anybody cares about in a way. I don't mind if they have to have blogs about actual big bugs, like for example the torpedo bug, right? That is where you want information, where you want a dev blog on. It's it doesn't really do anything. It's a bit of a silly fool. I don't mind that it's there necessarily, but the problem is that the whole article already starts reading because they made so little changes and they don't really explain exactly why they felt like those numbers are justified in a way. They made changes in the right direction, that it's a good thing, don't misunderstand, and I like that they are buffing some of those ships and nerfing some of them. But it feels like you can't just look at some of those things and feel like that's just a meme, right? It's like they aren't actually trying to balance it. They're just like, okay, if everybody complains about this, then maybe we just pretend we do something about it. It feels in so many ways like we pretend to do something about a problem without actually really addressing the problem. And then in the end, they do bug fixes. We changed something you didn't even know was wrong, which has no impact on anyone. And look at what we are doing, right? I don't know. It just makes the article a bit more of a meme than it. Still like the changes that they're doing, but at least try harder. Seriously, if you want to actually improve your balancing, try a little bit harder than this, please.
We have talked in the past about how it would be nice if they would provide more context for the changes that they make, but I think they've actually addressed that themselves. But I can't remember what the reasoning was, that it would be too much work, or...
I think they worried it would confuse people too much and open too many cans of worms.
Some of them are kind of self-explanatory, like Synop getting a slight nerf to its AP Citadel damage, for example. It was clearly doing a bit too much damage. By whatever metrics they use. Monarch getting a bit more firing ranges slightly. That again kind of feels like the Stalingrad. It feels like the wrong sticking plaster kind of thing. Like it's not really going to change the Monarch experience having an extra 5 minutes of extra 5 kilometers of meters even. I got that. Where did minutes come from? I don't know. Of firing range, but there's other stuff like Marco Polo's guns getting a bit more reliable would be nice.
Yeah.
So
I see what you're saying, for you can't argue against small changes in the right direction. Well, yes, and obviously, right, if there's more changes in the right direction, they're good changes. But the thing is, the community has been complaining about some of those things for a very long time, and they have been an issue for a very long time. And now they finally said, they announced it even in the big statement of intent, yeah, okay, we are finally going to address some of the long outstanding balancing issues of the game. And then you wait for that, and then they came out and they're like, hey, half a second reload nerf for a Petro. And you just look at it and be like, are you trying to troll me right now? Or are you like, is this somebody put a gun on your head and they're like, you need to nerf the Petro and you try to make the most useless nerf in the universe? Is this what's happening here? Like, I mean, it's a step in the right direction in a sense, but it's such a small step that you'd need a microscope to figure out if it actually has moved. And that really feels like I'm being trolled in a sense that, nobody who has actually played this game has taken a look at this and be like, how can we properly balance this? They made somebody to like, can you please address this without addressing the issue?
It does. I kind of see what you're saying here, Tam. Yeah, some of the more long-standing ones that they've had a very long time to address, you would maybe expect there to be more substantial balance changes rather than just the more incremental changes, which are kind of, on the whole, a good thing. I think I kind of agree with you there. That's certainly some ships where you would think by now they would have enough data to be able to change several things at once instead of just doing the more incremental changes, which, I mean, I don't think they are doing it to like gaslight people. I think I'll disagree with you there, but I can kind of see why you might think of it that way. Because it doesn't seem like a terribly substantial change.
They could have easily set that like to 15 or so, but Petro would still be a fine ship. But it's also like with the Petro is a long-standing issue in one way, but it's still a relatively new one compared to like a Yu Yang, right? The Yu Yang has been for many years. How many years has it been? 3 years, 4 years, 5 years since they really nerfed the Yu Yang? I mean, a lot of years ago. And they still haven't, I think, buffed it to the way it was back then. And it's a ship that has been on the bottom for a long, popularity-wise, which they seem to care about a lot, and performance-wise, right? And they never addressed it. And no matter how often it has been brought up, and there was even this dev blog where they're like, where it's like, and it's hard to balance stuff. And okay, Yu Yang has been low on popularity and on performance. It's like, they even admitted that. And still, to this day, they are refusing to or like, take it with, I mean, the Flint still hasn't its firing range back for one reason, but it's not like the Flint would be a problem with 13.3 kilometers, and it took them 2-3 patches to even get to the 12.3 of what it has now. And it's like, why? It's like they have, when they make something like, for example, a submarine, they have no problem with submarines being flat out overpowered, broken, the most broken mechanic they might have introduced ever, and they put it in random battles. They admit that they're broken beyond belief, technically, in the last statement, and they leave them in random battles, and so somehow this is fine. But then you look at a ship that has been for years suffering, and they are like, I feel like a sow, maybe like 2,000 hit points.
So the problem we have is that we can only peek behind the curtain. There's lots of people pulling information out of the back end and data mining and trying to just get some sort of an idea about it. I've not been idle while I've been sort of sabbatical away time, just getting back to normal and getting back into things and stuff. I've been trying to dive as deep as I can do into these numbers and try to make head and sense of some of the stuff that I see.
Mm-hmm.
And changes that you see here, I can't fathom personally how they work against or with other ships of that class, or how it makes sense. It doesn't. At no point. Yes, Petro is a strong ship. Make no bones about it. But what difference is half a second reload going to make to her? there are numbers that we don't have access to, that nobody does, that will be classed as commercially sensitive. I'd argue they're not. They're just numbers in the game. It's what you do with it in order to balance your game, I suppose. That makes it commercially sensitive potentially. But it's, it just doesn't make, changes for the sake of changes. Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. I mean, personally for me, you know what? This is kind of, some people might get upset with this, but for me, I frankly, I wouldn't mind if we had a patch every week, if we had a micro update every week of changes.
Mm-hmm.
If they literally sat and, we all know that there was a Russian, one of our Russian CC colleagues was kicked out of the program because he turned around and said that because he turned around and proved that the devs have only played 300 games in a year. When you're only playing 300, I mean, that could be one account of that person. We don't know.
Well, with the caveat of the accounts that he knew of, kind of thing.
I mean, I can't see. You need to spend time in your own product to get an understanding of why there's a disconnect. And stuff like we've seen here that Foo's a great guy. I've got a lot of time for him. But you can see the disconnect between not just the player base internally, but the player base and the devs, and then the player base and the community management team. I struggle. That's where I struggle a lot with this stuff, because it seems like there's 3 points of view. There's the player's point of view, how the game feels the player as a person. There's the perceived feedback that the community managers and the devs see, and then there's the internal communication either out to us or out or around, and it just doesn't add up, It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, or I mean, with things that don't make sense, we have a perfect way to go to subs, I guess. And
yes, our last devlog.
The 2 weeks of random battle testing. So this is in a lot of ways what, like, I'll say this, they aren't actually really testing submarines that much. They have chosen a limited time release of a broken product. The thing is, right, you can't really call it a test if the subs are now easier to access than if they were fully released, because you don't have to grind through lines. You make complete a mission that is 12,000 base experience or whatever, and you have the subs, right? You don't even have to buy them for credits. Subs are easier to access than if they were released. Everybody can have them. They are in random battles without restrictions in that sense. Obviously there are matchmaking restrictions, but people can play them as much as they do. They are even easier around right now as if they had been fully released, and they are full part of the game for now, for a limited time. So they are basically a limited time release right now, not a test, if you're honest about it. And this is what gets me, right? You don't really test your product by releasing it. It's like if Wargaming was a company that, made food, they'd be like, okay, so we have this, we want to change our product, but we aren't sure if it makes people maybe vomit or sick, right? So what we do is we just sell the new product, and then we see if people get sick. And then after 2 weeks, they come, okay, we figured out that people get sick consuming our product. So we're going to sell the same product for another 2 weeks, and then we're gonna change it. We already have plans for changing it, so there's no reason to sell the product that makes people sick, but we'll still continue to sell the product that makes people sick, because that's just how we roll. And that's just so mind-boggling for me, right? So they have reworked the homing torpedoes because they basically admit, in a sense, that they are just way too strong. That's basically an admittance that you can't have them homing and basically ignore torpedo protection and such. So first, they are going to split them. There will be the torpedoes that get damage boost from double ping but are not homing, and then there are the homing torpedoes that don't get a damage boost. And they even reduce the range which they're homing, like, was it, I think...
So the first type of... so to address the issues, they're reworking torpedoes and splitting them into two types, which now means that you've got two different types of torpedoes on a submarine. The switch is going to be the same as if it was handled on the Yamagiri. So you've got homing torpedoes, so reduced maneuverability. The distance at which they stop homing will be increased twofold. Okay, that's great. And the rest of the parameters remain similar to the other ones that have the live serve. The first ping activates homing, the second ping improves it. But what they have said they do is that they're no longer going to get the damage bonus that they receive to a double ping torpedo. So again, to me, that doesn't. The one thing I want to ask on that is, does that mean that they're not going to cause citadels now on a double? They're no longer going to do citadel damage, because a double ping torpedo would citadel a ship.
I mean, isn't torpedo damage citadel damage anyway? Like counted for heals?
I don't think it is, because
is it citadel or is it just heavy?
I think it's just heavy.
Okay, I mean, we'd have to Google that.
Because I mean, DD main, Mr. Aiton there, have you ever got a citadel from a torpedo launched with a destroyer?
I mean, have I...
Have you ever got? I mean, they're saying it's this. They're saying the damage parameters and things like that are similar to the ones in the game, excluding this homing mechanic. Have you ever got a citadel with a torpedo in a destroyer?
So you mean, obviously you can't citadel with a regular destroyer, but like,
these ones with the ping, apparently, we've seen the little clips and the videos and stuff like that out there. These ones do citadel with double ping. However, successfully sonar ping torpedoes no longer receive any bonuses to the damage. So, I suppose I'd like that to be a little bit more clear. Does that mean that they can't citadel anymore? If that's the case, and it's just the standard heavy torpedo damage, okay, that's an improvement.
Yeah, also like the double ping, like it basically made them ignore torpedo protection. So that will be no longer the case. So if you actually have torpedo protection, you get that to reduce the damage. So I think they will just behave like, the way I understand it, the homing torpedoes are behaving like all the normal torpedoes, right? It just makes it homing, it doesn't give you any bonus. That's the way I understand it.
And the maneuverability will be reduced as well.
Yeah, they will no longer home as close. But right now, I think you can get homing up to 360 meters to a cruiser if you have a double ping or something like that, which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the image of the torpedoes actually virtually turning 90 degrees from their course to go, oh, hello.
Yeah, it's like if they make homing torpedoes somewhat dodgeable if you pay attention to, and no longer the double ping increase the damage. But that's a huge admittance that the torpedoes were just broken, right? If you have to nerf the homing and you have to nerf the damage, it just is indirectly they are admitting that the torpedoes right now are broken beyond belief. If you have to go to such lengths to nerf the torpedoes.
So one thing I find really interesting about this, and again, it's this back and forth, and this interesting part for me on this is we have a perfectly good test server.
Yeah.
The reason that they can't test stuff like this on the test server is because nobody plays on the test server. You get, I think the most I've ever seen on the test server is about 2,500 players globally. You can't balance a new class, especially coming into a game, based on less than 1% of your player base, because you've got no way of understanding how it's going to react. So, everyone's happy to kick off about this, but this is going to put a target on my head. But so be it. The real people to blame for submarines coming into the game like this is us as players for not playing on the test server, which ergo then also blames the fact that as a player, you don't have time to play on the test server. You look at the entire stack of everything everything you want to achieve as a player. You can't play on the test server that would be the smarter way of doing it. So stuff like this has to happen on the live server to get any meaningful quantitative data that allows them to do these changes and create these balances. But in the meantime, it's the damage that it does to the game in the short term.
I
and the damage it does to you.
Yeah, yes and no. So the thing is, you can't really expect people. I mean, most people aren't really aware probably of the test server, and even if they were, they need to install a second client to access it. You can't really expect a casual player to go through that in order to just test the game.
Yeah.
And what they can easily do, on the other hand, is create a new game mode in-game on the live server. And when you log in, you get a pop-up. Everybody, you can now test submarines, and then you list the rewards, because we all know people just do things if the rewards are right. So what you can do is, you can be like, hey, you can now play submarines here. It's on the live server. There's a special game mode to test them out. And you get, I don't know, steel or something interesting, research points. You get some resource that people actually want. And then you can test it. I mean, they even tested them in ranked battles where they have quite a significant number of people playing it. Not as much as random, obviously. They still weren't happy with that. But what also gets me is, right, there are easier ways of getting a lot of people than just putting them in there. Like, there are other ways, basically, to test things other than putting them in randoms. But we are not to the point where we just make a few adjustments, right? This is not like the fine-tuning balancing. They are in the stage where they don't even know how, the main armament works. They don't know how the spotting works. They don't know how the counterplay works. We're at the very early stages of a new concept, right? They have still no clue how to, they probably want to do anti-submarine warfare. They still have no clue how they do spotting, and they still have no idea how the main armament. This is not something that should ever appear on a live server in the main battle game mode.
But the thing is, I mean, they're not that new. 2018 was when they first appeared in a playable format.
True, but they haven't figured out how to do them since. The problem is that they jumped from concept to concept and none of it worked. And now they were like, okay, screw it. We just take a concept that we know doesn't work and shove it into random battles and hope that we get the genius idea out of it.
I think the thing that we're seeing coming out, I mean, we've got a full dev blog post of 2 weeks of random battle testing, and all they prove. It's great that they're putting so much detail into these posts. Submarine spotting underwater, depth switching abuse, hydroacoustic search and maximum depth, submarine popularity. I wouldn't include anything. Given a choice on this, mentioning submarine popularity, I mean, I'm not being funny, but if you put something new in a game, like you've just said, people play it straight away. You see it. Operations, my little world, my little baby. Time and time again. Oh look, new mechanic in operation, new operation. And what do you see? You see a spike. You see a spike. You see a spike. You give people free new stuff at higher tiers they might not even have had access to. Of course they're going to play it because, oh, look, I've got a tier 10 for free. Like, oh, what do I do? It's, testing them in co-op. Again, what meaningful data did they get out of co-op testing?
Yeah.
Playing them in a ranked season where rough numbers, and these were only rough numbers from what I've been able to dig out, the lowest ranked season since inception. The lowest played ranked season since inception. And that's, I mean, again, pointing back to that thing on the forum. 95.5% of your polled players who answered that poll gave the answer of no, don't like them, don't want them, don't care, not interested. The fact, you're carrying on with them. You said you're going to move forward with them in that article. You're going to make changes. This isn't a change born out of player base engagement. This isn't a change born out of, anything else. This is now a change that is a fiscal change, a financial change. We spent all this money. We've done all this development work. We've gone through all these iterations. We spent all this money. We have to put them in the game. It's whether it's for the good, the bad, or the ugly, they've got to go in the game now. They're too far. They're too far down the rabbit hole. They can't. This is a financial push to put them in. This isn't a.
The thing is, you always have to think, if it really would drive away a lot of people, then it would be financially a bad thing to release them, right? No matter how much they invested in it, if it long-term causes problems for them, it would be better to pull the plug. But it's always obviously a hard thing for a company to do. And I'm not sure how much they just want to push this forward, or how much they are really not getting how people don't like it, right? It's like, when they're moving forward, they're like, even these changes are quite noticeably affect the gameplay. There's still many supplement mechanics which haven't been touched. In order to test this new ship type, will possibly this blah blah blah. Basically, they're saying they need to carry out more testing, and even though those changes are announced and they are not in the game yet, they keep testing the current subs that are being radically changed because they need the data for other stuff. But I would argue that any data they now collect is going to be complete garbage, because those are really impactful changes. They're going to change how the main armament of submarines work. They're going to change how the spotting works, right? So that they can now spot. That affects how people play the ship. That affects, in a way, how anti-submarine warfare will work, because if they can't spot as effectively anymore, maybe they are going to closer. Maybe they're going to play their ships entirely, position them differently. That means how effective certain anti-submarine warfare is that has different ranges with the planes. That will change. So any data you collect now is going to be complete garbage, because it's all related to the core mechanics that you are going to change. So now you test them for 2 more weeks. If you use the data, then you're going to make mistakes. And if you throw away the data, then why do you keep them in random battles? That's why I say it's not really a test. It's basically a limited time release of a broken product. This isn't a test, this is a full inclusion in the game right now. For a limited time, they are a full part of this game. And they admit that the main armament is basically broken because it requires such heavy changes. And they basically admit that the spotting is broken because, they don't use the word broken. But we decided that the current implementation is too much. That's quite the concession from Wargaming. In other words, they admit that it's broken.
It does kind of almost feel like we're back in last year when they kept having the different versions of submarines with some quite major differences, and they just didn't seem to be able to find something that works. And here we are, they're on the live server, and again, it feels like they just can't find something that works. And, from my point of view, that's kind of proof that they don't fit the game, that they've spent this long on it and it still doesn't fit with all the different versions and variations we've gone through. But yeah, I don't know, despite them having said that they would drop it if they didn't think it was good for the game, I think you might be right with this kind of sunk cost fallacy that they feel like they have to put them in the game at this point, maybe.
Yeah.
Whoever's behind, also there's internal politics. I'm sure there will be a group that's behind that, and obviously it's not good for their career or their job if they pushed it or they designed this and they couldn't find, because in the end of the day, even if somebody in management said you're gonna make subs and they say we don't know how it's gonna work, and they said I don't care, you're gonna make me subs, and they can't find a solution within years, then it's probably not the person who said you're gonna make subs whose heads might roll. It might also be the person who then couldn't complete it in a sense. I don't know, it's it's probably a difficult situation for a lot of people working there. Maybe also for the person who first decided that this was a good idea. But they also might just switch out somebody below and give the next group a try of making subs work. But, as I said before, what really gets me is that they are so early in the development process, in a sense that they really admit that they haven't actually figured out how to do the main armament for torpedoes. The one thing that they mostly do, like torpedoing, the one thing that's really defining their class, and they haven't even figured out how to do that yet. I haven't figured out how to do spotting. And in a sense, they really haven't figured out anti-submarine warfare yet, although they don't mention it because it's utterly ridiculous right now. The best people who deal with submarines are battleships. And I feel like they just have put on different ships, different versions of the anti-submarine warfare planes just to test them. Not in any balancing way. They just said this ship gets version A, this ship gets version B, this ship gets version C, just so that they have a wide variety of data. It's in such early stage, and they forgot to put anti-submarine warfare on the Okhotnik. I will not forgive them then. Even though they claimed everyone was gonna get it except for the Dutch, which is another meme, I guess. It's it's just so incredibly early stages, so incredibly rushed, and so incredibly not tested. It's a joke. And it's basically a limited time release on the live server. And now they continue with it, even though they know it's a joke. I said at the beginning I shouldn't get so emotional about this. I probably shouldn't. I should just sit there and play the games and get what enjoyment I can out of them.
I said the same thing as well.
I suppose you could really argue that it's pretty much a soft launch at this point with the way they've.
I would say that it's not just that it is a full launch. It is a full-on soft launch. There's no if, buts, or maybes. It is a full soft launch.
It's what they promised they wouldn't do because they learned from CVs, so now they're calling it a test and giving it for a limited time to everyone and fully implementing it basically already in the game. I mean, it's possible that we are going to not see submarines for I wouldn't be surprised if they just they just, like in the next patch, they're going to immediately give the next stage of submarines to us, that the game will never be submarine free again. I'm not sure, depending on how fast they implement the changes. Maybe they give us 2 weeks off and then they come back. But at this point, I would really not be surprised if submarines are forever in random battles from now on. And they just keep calling it a test so that they can claim they haven't released an unfinished product.
Yeah. And I mean, see, this is where I feel really, it's just really disheartening as somebody who loves playing the game like everybody else. It's just super disheartening when you look at it, and it's like, if we can see the mistakes, or what we perceive to be the mistakes, why is it so hard for that? Why is it so hard for the devs with a far more detailed look than us that on this to not see it? Where's the disconnect? And there's another thing I actually wanted to ask you guys about, which isn't in any of the dev blogs or anything like that, but it's something that's been on my mind for the last couple of weeks. It's gone very, very, very quiet externally about the CC program rework.
Oh yeah.
That was we'll have answers by the end of September.
Well, yeah,
We'll have answers by the middle of October.
we were thinking that at least, people that we speak to that's still in the program would have heard something at this point. But yeah, it seems like they're still doing whatever they're doing behind the scenes, if they're doing anything at all.
Yeah, it just seems like it. I mean, see, I said when they came out with all the big huff and the big statement and all that, I called it a statement of intent.
Mm-hmm.
They've answered a couple of the easy questions, if we're frankly honest, and that's it. There's been nothing furthermore since. It's gone so quiet.
The drop rates have been by far the most substantial movement we've seen from them.
Yeah, and you look at it and you think there was some things on there that we all highlighted. You know what? They're quick wins. We should see some answers fairly quick on that. See nothing at all. It's great big content, great big hoo-ha. No answers, just more of the same. And I said it at the start when we start. I said it in one of the earlier part of the podcast with yourselves. No one's following up on it. Nobody's chasing up on it. Nobody's creating or talking about it or anything like that. It's literally like it's gone, next issue.
I mean, the thing about this is that I have said shortly after I left the program that if I were to rejoin, it wouldn't be that quickly, right? If they had made changes like end of September, no matter what they would have said, I wouldn't have rejoined. I mean, no, they don't care about me since I'm a small crate anyway. I would have said that I need to see more proof of what they are doing, right? If they announce big changes for the program, first you need to see them actually implemented and so on. And I wanted to see the drop rates appear, and I wanted to definitely wait till Christmas and see how they do the Christmas loot boxes and stuff like that. And overall see their behavior change, right? Because that's going to be a long. And so I never really cared that much, I guess. Well, I mean, if they make that CC program better again, that would be great. But whatever they would have announced, I felt like we will have to wait and see what changes there. And so far, since they haven't come out with anything, at this point, I believe they just, they are not going to do anything. They waited for the heat to die over, and now they are quite happy that a lot of the people that complain about the product are no longer CCs. So maybe they'll change how they vet people. I jokingly said what they're going to change is that they're going to place shock collars on CCs in the future to prevent rebellion. And I wouldn't be surprised if, in a sense, that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to make sure that they get a firmer leash on whoever they have in the program, and maybe limit the way they can do damage like them or try to bind them closer or something like that. But I don't think that they contemplate a change for the good, or at least they haven't given me any optimistic feelings towards that.
So have you guys seen one of the latest vacancies?
St. Petersburg, you mean, or?
No, for Prague.
Okay.
Community engagement manager, looking for a community engagement manager to join the World of Warships in its Prague office. In this role, you will work with the World of Warships product group to adapt and ensure the execution of a strong community engagement strategy to the World of Warships community. You will also act as the face and voice of World of Warships for the community on forums, social media videos, live streams, and in events, manage relationships with key community influencers, and regularly report on KPIs and sentiments of the community to the product group. It reports to the regional publishing director. That's Lloyd of Droid.
Mm-hmm.
Create and improve our existing competitive community tournaments, tying in with the development roadmap and keep our hardcore players engaged. Be the global driver of contests from Europe, work with the global team ever so closely to create better and more impactful contests, tournaments, and events, both offline and online. Promote and manage tournaments that help increase clan adoption from new and casual. Be the driver of Twitch production, video production, and other rich content the EU team produces and uses it globally for all regions. Use the vast experience when it comes to streaming to diversify and grow video portfolio. Work with the community team to ensure we create and execute a self-sustained and independent functional offline event calendar. Work ever more so closely with the biggest CCs to create more engaging and useful content for existing and new players while onboarding more CCs to CCTP. Help the RPD to forge new collaborations in the UK and Germany, collaborations that can be brought into the game. All of the duties that may be assigned by the company and that would enter into scope of your qualifications. What are we looking for? Excellent verbal and written communication skills in English and additional European languages a must. Expert knowledge on World of Warships with a minimum of 2,000 battles. Expert knowledge of the gaming culture and its trends. Expert knowledge and experience of video or streaming content creation. Solution-orientated mindset with a strong ability to turn challenges into opportunities. Strong analytical and reporting skills coupled with good knowledge of industry standards for community KPIs. Ability to travel abroad, able and willing to work alternating shifts and weekends as required by the business.
I mean, if we give them the benefit of the doubt, it could be that they have plans for the program, but they need to require additional personnel to do it. But then they could have announced the plans already. I feel like the problem that Wargaming has is that they want sort of a program to keep people engaged in the game, but they are not willing to actually do anything to keep people engaged in the game, right? They've kind of seen that if you have content creators and we just give them stuff, then they make content about the game, and that keeps, I mean, obviously content creation keeps people in the game, it keeps them engaged, it gives them a chance to maybe show off the replays, to talk with like-minded people and so on. Like, obviously you want a strong content creator community to keep a game alive and keep people engaged. But what they've never done is, they've done something on the North American server, like where I've mentioned this in the past with like the hunt events and so on, where you can
the anchors away and stuff,
and it was a bit of a regional thing, but Wargaming in itself as a company, they've never really engaged into any special interaction with the community or make fun events or so to try to engage like as the existing people. In this way, they always just be like, okay, we have content creators and it's their stuff. And obviously with content creators getting more and more disenchanted because they haven't been listened to. And also like there's weird decisions that like Wargaming makes, right? Because people have been asking for about like that you can anonymize your name or something like a streamer mode, that you could not be stream sniped that easily, right? Or that people can't see who you actually are in the game. Not the problem for a small creator, but like big names like Flambas, who is now changing his nickname on a 2-weekly basis or something like that. That would be very, and Wargaming is always like, we can't do that because there's only so few people that would be interested in this, right? There aren't that many streamers. But that's just a marketing expense, right? Basically, if you have happier people streaming your game, it's better marketing, right? You want to help those people. Like, you want to engage with them. You want to help them create better content. You want them to be the happy faces that keep people engaged. But Wargaming never understood that. They were never even willing to raise a little finger, right? The replay system has been buggy since it came out. It is still buggy today. It somewhat works. We can create content with it, but it's not really designed for that. And it's just, And there was this change, right? When you could no longer use old replays. When was it? Like 2 years ago. And you know what the sad part is? I expected this to be coming, because when they said you now need the launcher basically to start it, I was like, okay, so how can I still open old replays? Because if I need the launcher now, how can I launch an old client? And Wargaming said to me, yes. I asked them specifically back then when I was in contributor chat, and they told me, yes, no problem. Patch it, I couldn't. I told them, guys, I can no longer open old replays. They're like, oh, okay, send me the replay, we will check. And they're like, yeah, you're right, you no longer can do that. And
the end.
the end, they said then, yeah, maybe we'll try to find a solution. Nothing ever happened, obviously, but this is basically, I specifically asked because I felt this might be a problem. They assured me it wouldn't be, and then it was a problem, exactly as I predicted. And this is the kind of support they are giving into the content producers. This is the way they, like, a lot of companies go out of the way to make it easy for people to create content, or they want to encourage that, and in a sense the CC program should be that, but they always were like, well, we don't actually put any work in it, we don't actually want to do anything ourselves, we just give people a few goodies, and here you good CC, make video.
Mm.
Do you kind of cynically have to wonder if they were thinking when they overhauled the program and were like, okay, we'll give people free stuff, and I think we know from FEM that it's like one specific guy in the NA program that resulted in that happening. But if they kind of took that up and were like, okay, we'll just give them free stuff, and then they'll be happy and they won't want anything, and they'll only say nice things about World of Warships.
I mean, the free stuff
and then
is
it
a
didn't
good
quite work out that way.
But the free stuff is a good marketing thing, right? Because if people
absolutely.
can't play the premium ships, then people aren't interested in them, right? People, there's a new premium, people want to go into a stream and be like, hey, can I see this new premium? And then you show it off, and the streamer is a good game, and they're like, hey, I want it, right? So this was a very good marketing decision in a way to give the content creators access to all of that stuff and show it off, because a lot of that stuff costs money. If there's a new camo coming out, if there is a new collaboration coming out, if there's a new captain, people want to hear the voice of, right? People want to see that. And if they provide it to the contributors, right, then they can show it off and Wargaming makes more money with it, right? I'm not sure why exactly they made the decision in the end, but it was a good decision, financial decision for them in that sense. But once again, it's not something that they were actually really too much involved in. It wasn't an event they had to organize. It wasn't something where the community really interacted with the contributors. They were really, in that sense, hands off. They were like, people just make content, and you just, you make content, right? And we don't get involved in anything. We don't really want to spend any time or effort in keeping people engaged. That's your job.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. I mean, even after the rework, with some of the stuff that we now know in hindsight, it still very much feels like a kind of absolute afterthought of, well, we'd better do some marketing beyond just adverts, I suppose. I don't know. I suppose I'm feeling a bit jaded about the whole thing at this point, though, for obvious reasons, so hardly an unbiased point of view.
I just wonder how many more. I mean, I look through all of the. I look through a lot of the. I look a lot through the World of Warships section on Twitch, and you see such varying views going all the way through from super mega positive, to super mega negative. And then you look through even deeper in terms of just, right now, as we're all talking here, this is at this time of night, on there, there's 4.8k of viewers on Twitch watching World of Warships. So of that 4.8k, a little over 25% are split amongst 3 streamers at the top, with there being, I think, about, give or take, probably about 40 to 50 people streaming the game currently. I personally know all I mean, we all personally know the the 3 that have got it split across the top, and they're the nicest people in the world. They're the people who, do you know what? Actually, they genuinely deserve it because they're good people. They're good, positive people. They're very honest. They're very good. They are nice people, genuinely. And they're the kind of people that actually, you know what? Yeah, they're the right people to be there because it gives the right impression about the game. None of the crap or anything like that. None of the this is good, this is bad, or this is atrocious, this is so broken, this is none of the hyperbole, none of the over the top. They're just good, normal people, and that's the right kind of stuff that's there. But to me, you've always got to take what you see subjectively. It doesn't matter whether it comes from Atom, Pointy, me, anybody at all. We can only give you our point of view, our opinion, our thoughts, our feelings. And they're only as good as the time at what we say them and how we feel at the minute. I mean, right now, anything we say, to a degree, anything, you've got to have a look at it and think, would you really buy that myself? Am I interested in that myself and stuff like that? So it's hard to get an opinion on what's going on in the game and where everything's going and what the community feels as well, because you've got such varying views. And I mean, we don't. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a natural. I don't speak Russian. I can't speak.
Me neither.
I can't understand Polish. Mein Deutsch ist nicht sehr gut. Ich spreche ein bisschen, aber ich spreche Englisch, bitte schön, danke. My French is even worse. My Italian and Spanish is non-existent above ciao and si. For some reason, I can understand the Americans very well. I don't know why that would be the case, but I can. But no, I mean, stuff like that. We have the hard. I mean, we have the hardest job ever to try and understand and convey across. Like recently, I found out, and I can't believe I've been doing this for so long, and it's a bit of a shock as well. When you wave like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. To us in the UK, that's perfectly natural, isn't it, Pointy? You're waving to say hello to your friends. Yeah. You do that to someone in Greek, you're telling them to bog off. So I've been waving to Chaos all this time without realising. And Chaos, one of my all-time friends from Bob's, and I've been basically saying, bog off, Chaos, with a big grin on my face. And he's like, oh my God, no. And it's crazy little things like that you've got to actually understand when it comes to dealing with the community and understanding what the hell they think of your game. You put a happy, smiling, waving commander in, and you alienate your Greek community just by doing one thing like that, potentially, because it comes across the wrong way. You put in Winston Churchill, going like that, peace. That's going to upset some people, and comes back to that one word we all said before: context. How is it going to come across? You never get it right in gaming, and the sad thing for us, and the sad thing that I think a lot of us will see, is that we can see the do not do context, or the how not to context, or it's easy to point out the when it goes wrong context. Submarines, how not to test something in a live environment. CV rework, how not to test something in a test environment before you bring it into live. Puerto Rico, how not to publicize an event. Christmas boxes, how not to tell your community about your stuff.
How to break the law, basically.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that it's like, what? It's so easy to point that out, but when you get it right, nobody points out that when you get it right. You can't see it.
It depends. I mean, if you have a good relationship with your community, you point out if they will acknowledge if it. And I feel like in the first years in Warships, there was plenty of also positive feedback when they got it right. And I was, for the longest time, I was not. I was always critical of things that I didn't like in a sense, but for the longest time there wasn't that much that I didn't like. And it used to be when they were testing a ship, and back when we could test ships as CCs, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, this is so broken," or "This is so shit," and I was like, "Hey guys, this is still in testing." I always try to, when I play the test ship, I was like, "Look, this is maybe the first version of a ship. It's never gonna be right in the first version of a ship, right? It's gonna be balanced. Just be patient. It's gonna take a few iterations. You first test it, right, and then you see if it's too strong or too weak, and then you adjust it, and so on." And I was that person that was always in a way like this. But obviously this has changed over the years, because I have to admit that in time I was like, wait a moment, they didn't balance this. They just threw it out, and it's not really how it should be, right? And then I have to be like, yeah, I mean, I know it's only in balancing, but honestly, I can't with good conscience tell you it's gonna be right, because I don't believe it anymore. They just... They're going to throw it out anyway, and I'm sorry, right? And it's basically, once they basically broken trust with the community often enough, once they backstabbed the community often enough, once they kept lying enough, at this point it's very hard for them to get a win, even if they make, like as we had earlier, right? They make the changes to the loot boxes, they show the drops. That's a win for the community. That's a good thing they're doing, and people going off about something else, because they have basically they've stabbed the community so often that it's just, it's hard to repair that. It's hard to repair that relationship again, and it's going to take a lot more than this. And it's also going to be hard for Wargaming if they do a good thing and they don't feel like they're appreciated for it. But they have done so much bad that it's going to be, a long way to repair this. If they are willing, then they have to now put in the effort.
And that's what we're waiting to see.
Yeah. Also, by the way, fun fact, when you said about this waving thing, I didn't know that. And we recently had Chaos as a guest, and we all waved goodbye.
I didn't realize either. It was actually, I want to pick up, and I want to start to learn a new digital language. And it came up because we were going about alpha and beta and gamma and all that kind of stuff, and how it harks back to Greek times and all this sort of stuff. And it was just this random video that came up that said that it was insulting things that you might do, that five things that you do unconsciously that could insult another person. And right there, number 4. Waving goodbye to somebody from Greece may be interpreted as giving them an open hand, which is also the equivalent of slap round the face. And it's like, really? That's the most. And Chaos actually said it kind of can be taken that way, depending. And it's like, wow. How many people have watched a stream where you've gone, "See you later, guys," and you've waved, and they've like, "I'm never coming back because you just insulted." It's like, oh. Yeah.
It's, but you'd think, you'd hope that people who watch more international content are a little bit more familiar that other people might not up to like how they do things. I'd at least hope that a lot of people don't take it too seriously. If they see a Greek person doing that as a Greek person, right, then it's something different. But if they see a foreigner doing something, that they'd be like, yeah, okay, this guy just doesn't know.
Absolutely. Damn. We've really been going on for 2 hours.
Yeah, we should probably think about wrapping things up at this point.
We've basically exhausted all the dev blocks by now. There are some changes to test ships that nobody cares about because we don't play the test ships and have no idea about them anyway, so... Basically, we've wrapped it all up, I guess.
Jeepers creepers. Sorry, apologies for rattling on.
Oh no, it's perfectly fine. I mean, that's the fun of a podcast, isn't it? It's a good idea to just, talk about this, a bit about it, right? Because it's, that you have a conversation with other people that are into ships and really can talk from your heart. It's not something that happens that often, I guess.
Oh, yes.
I guess we can wrap it up then here.
Yeah. I think we've bored everybody enough. We only mentioned operations for a few minutes as well. That's quite good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll have to get you back to rant about operations for 2 hours again some point in the future.
No. I'll amaze people. I'm actually quite happy with it. Quite happy. I just hope the community took advantage of the Operation Reset to get themselves the free captains and the 5 days of premium, the flags and all that kind of stuff. And I hope they're all making full use of the fact that we've got the Halloween operations back, because proof of the pudding of people will play them. They will come. They'll come if you do it. As long as people have done that.
I mean, they're fun operations.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about all of them. Not just the Halloween ones, but the normal ones as well. Because obviously, a couple of patches back, they reset them all. So you could go in and read 5-star every single operation and get the rewards. So there's 10-point captains, there's days of premium, there's commander XP, there's flags, there's camos. You can go and earn all of that again. I just hope people took advantage of it, because if they've done it once, show them that people want to play them. If you do it, if you do that, then that gives them the that important data we were talking about that says, look, if you do it, people will play it.
But I have to admit, at this point, until you mentioned it, I wasn't aware that I've reset that. I was aware that I reset it on the Halloweens, because I realized the Halloweens were back. So I took a look at that. But I wasn't aware that all operations had their rewards reset until you mentioned it just now.
Yeah, all of them.
So they could work on their communicating those things, I guess.
Yeah, that one did slip by under the radar a bit for me. I mean, I think I realised it like a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, it wasn't. They didn't make a big song and dance of it particularly.
Which kind of were, I mean, and that's the thing. If you don't make a big song and dance about it, people don't notice it. And of course, the biggest voices won't mention it because someone don't really care about operations. They're boring. They don't do anything. They mean nothing. They're no fun. And it's like you're missing out on on stuff. And when you're not sharing them with people, and you're not getting them involved in it, all you're giving them is more ammunition to say, you know what, light switch off. We don't have to put any more dev time in that. We can spend it all on submarines. And we've said for ages, submarines and operations go hand in hand, because you can recreate so many great operations, so many great historical events. Take the time, play them, show that people want to play them. And it's like convoy mode. Convoy mode could have been so good.
Yeah.
And it just feels like they missed such an opportunity. And as a result, it's what could have been versus what was. And again, it's another what coulda, woulda, shoulda.
The sad part is that submarines would be so much easier to balance in an operations setting, because you only have the players play submarines basically, and that makes the whole detection thing and the whole overpowered torpedoes a lot less problematic. Because balancing PvE is in a sense so much simpler, right? You only have to get one side right, and then you can. So you have to make them fun to play, right? And then you can change the II ships however you want. And it's also not a problem if the players win most of the time, because that's most people who enjoy PvE, they don't have a problem with winning all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the case.
Well, and I guess with that we can call it a night.
Yeah, I think so.
So thanks TC for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching. yeah.
Thank you for the invite, as always. It's always good to sit and shoot shit with you guys.
So yeah, have a good night, everyone, and we'll be back next week. And when we wave now, we are not being rude. Just saying. Bye.
See you later.
Log off if you're Greek, apparently.